And I just had this horrible feeling that this was a really bad decision. But I was already attached to the outcome. I already wanted the marriage to happen. Everyone thought it was great. They thought we were adorable, the perfect couple, blah, 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 blah. And am I going to throw away all that I've invested in this? Am I going to throw away the opportunity to have, the security that this relationship offers, the status that it offers? I was at that moment in time between university and career, in a tough spot financially as well. And I'm like, wow, there's just so many things.
Unleash your potential with MetaMindSream, disrupting possibilities. Dive into the fusion of positive neuroscience and business strategies with Scottlin and Dr. Lyman Montgomery. Break free from limiting beliefs, expand extraordinary lives, and boost business profitability.
Welcome back to MetaMindSream. You're joining myself, Scottlin, and Dr. Lyman Montgomery today. Hello, Lyman.
Hello, how are you doing, Ann?
I'm great. Lyman made this joke right before we started about being great, and Tony the Tiger came up, and so all I can hear is that now. So kind of, but yes, I am great. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it.
You're great.
Good. Well, welcome everyone to MetaMindSream, where we are disrupting what's possible, or really what your mind thinks is possible, by bringing you tools of the trade around MetaMindset. And what is MetaMindset? Well, MetaMindset is the fundamental foundation that our company is built on, which is Focused MetaMindset, Inc. And that is really helping you discover more profitability, but in a more simple way. And we do this by combining the principles of positive neuroscience with actionable business strategies. What is it about MetaMindset, Lyman, that really gives us an advantage when we're having this conversation?
I think one of the major advantages, especially in business, of having a meta mindset is teaches you to go beyond what you thought was customary, what makes sense. Sometimes that gut feelings, that intuitiveness that you say, you know what, something told me, I couldn't put my finger on it. I think all of us have had those experiences. It's how to lean into that and to trust that it's there for a reason. We just back it up with neuroscience. But it's that intuitive way of going beyond what's possible and allowing yourself to intuitively do what is aligned with your beliefs, what is natural, and is not a push or pull. It's doing those things that come naturally. All of us have been there, Ann, where it was something that was off about this person or something just felt right about doing it. And when we lean into that, that's what meta mindset is all about. We just add focus to it so that it has a target. So whatever you want to do, you lean into that and you do the things that are naturally occurring in your inside. It's that gut feeling.
And this is why it's easier, because we've often, and we haven't revisited this for a while, we've often been taught that how we run our business, how to become successful in any area of life, is to do it what's basically the hard way, to do it by one template that worked for a handful of people that may or may not have they don't have our experience, don't have our training, and they don't have our personal personality and wisdom. So while parts of those things can be true, not one size fits all. And the meta mindset is a way of thinking, right?
It's a way of thinking, yes.
Yeah.
If you look at, for example, in the finance world, several years ago, Warren Buffett purchased a large stake into a soft drink company. They interviewed him. They said, what was the deciding factor? He said, I like their drink. He invested in Dairy Queen. Well, what was it? Was the market up? He's like, no, I like Dairy Queen. I eat there every day. So why not own a part of it? So again, that's probably one of the most wealthiest men in the world, is basically using a meta mindset to say, listen, I like their food. I like their customer service. I don't need to look at a bunch of charts. It felt right, so I bought it. And it's been very successful. That's just an example. If you look at a number of great business people and you ask them, how did you know that this? A lot of times, if they're honest with you, they will say, I just had a gut feeling about it. It just felt right. That's meta mindset.
Well, it's meta mindset when, and I'm going to play devil's advocate as always, when, with a little clarification here, you have accumulated a lifetime of data-driven experience, or even a few years or whatever. You have experience and you add to that your gut instinct. The people that make very often very poor decisions are people who make gut instinct without any data or experience or training or anything. And they're just like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to invest every cent I have, which Warren Buffett did not do. I'm going to invest every cent I have in this one random multi-level startup. Nothing against multi-level. I'm just saying that is just brand new. And I think it's going to be the next greatest thing. And, you know, as always, they say, you know, don't invest your money in what you can't afford to play with. but having
very good advice. Very good advice.
And then using your instinct. I'm going to rephrase that. A lot of people stop using instinct because they are so data driven, they forget to operate from their own intuition.
But even when you look at the data, there's still that visceral feeling that you have. Something's off. A lot of times it works as a protection. It's something about that person. I can't put my finger on it. And sadly to say, a lot of times men have that, but we won't lean into it because we've been conditioned. Don't trust your emotions. Take feelings out of it. It's all about cerebral knowledge, logic. And I've had situations where I've had someone come up to me and say, Lyman, you know, what you're explaining to me on paper, it makes sense, but I just don't have a good feeling about it. So I normalized it in my mind by saying this. It is the feeling that I have backed up with logic. So I have a gut feeling about it. Is it in alignment? And that's trying to get my head, heart, and my hands in alignment. And when it's always going to be one of the two is going to be off, or two of the three is off. And that's a no signal for me, Ann.
Yeah. So we all have experiences of when we weren't in a meta mindset, when we had instinct and we took the wrong turn despite all the data. And we aren't in the lifestyle segment yet, but I'll give this as an example. It's very personal. Like being vulnerable is what makes you real, right? So in my previous marriage, when I first met this man, he checked all the boxes. He was the right religion, the right politics to match my dad. He was had a great job. He was good looking. He was fit. He was, you name it, on and on, educated, whatever the people in my life thought should be the boxes checked, including my parents, my best friends. They're like, he checks all the boxes. Like, don't let that one get away. I had this weird gnawing feeling, and right before the wedding, we were engaged, so maybe a month or two before the wedding, we had a big argument out on a hiking trail one day with some friends who ended up hanging back and just freaking out because we weren't like yelling and screaming and hitting each other, but it was really not a good talk. It was a bad argument. And a lot of it had to do with my personal freedom and my professional future. And he kind of laid down the law a bit. And I thought, wait, this is not, no, that is not what I want. That is not who I want to be. That is not how I want this relationship to be. I don't want it to be a top-down patriarchal relationship. I'm trying to get out of that. I want to have a lateral team. And I just had this horrible feeling that this was a really bad decision. But I was already attached to the outcome. I already wanted the marriage to happen. Everyone thought it was great. They thought we were adorable, the perfect couple, blah, 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 blah. And am I going to throw away all that I've invested in this? Am I going to throw away the opportunity to have, you know, the security that this relationship offers, the status that it offers? I was at that moment in time between university and career, in a tough spot financially as well. And I'm like, wow, there's just so many things So I went with what seemed like the logical choice. And whenever we make the logical choice, we're often making a survival choice, and we need to
That's a
check
good point.
that
Yes.
against our intuition. And as I said, ex-husband, that I was right. So, whoops.
But again, it goes back to head, heart, hand. And what I mean by hand is the work. A lot of times in business, we always you hear terms like grinding. You got to grind. That's the hand. You got to, lay your hand to the plow. Don't look back. All of these terms based on when we get addicted to our own labor. All right. A meta mindset, to your point, is when there's an alignment between what does my head say? What does my heart say? And yes, there's some work behind it. So it's not just simply saying, I got a gut feeling, and you don't put any labor behind it, nor is it everything is saying no, but you got a gut feeling about it. It's being able to say, I have this gut feeling, but what else is going on? And then this is where I think you are an expert at, is partnering, saying, and I'm feeling this. What is your take on it? Getting that outside objective person to say, what does your gut tell you? And you're good at it. You say, nope, you're right. Something is off. I can't put my finger on it, but definitely maybe you need to do more investigation, but something is off.
Yes. And if I had done that, I would have discovered that his ex-girlfriend, who still lived on the same university campus, was so sure that they were going to get married, even though they weren't officially engaged, that she'd already bought her wedding dress.
Wow.
But that also failed. So I would have had some data. But you know what, Lyman, we put these blinders on when we're so attached to an outcome.
Amen.
We're like, no, I want this outcome regardless. And we sell ourselves short when we get like that. And that's what a meta mindset is, rising above what is normally possible. So sometimes we're just stuck. We don't understand that we have more possibilities open to us than the small little box we've grown up in, or what we think about who we are. And that's what meta mindset means. Meta, going above could be too, above and beyond. We're going to go to our first break real quick. And when we come back, we're going to jump into our topic for the day, which is permission to party. What?
Yes.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Unleash the power of Focused MetaMindset lunch and learn sessions. Sharpen problem-solving skills, spark innovation, foster collaboration, and build adaptability and resilience. Elevate your team's success and profits. Discover more at www.focusedmetamindset.com.
Welcome back to MetaMindSream with Dr. Lyman Montgomery and myself, Ann Scottlin. We're so glad you joined us today. We're having a wonderful conversation already about MetaMindset. And if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you are viewing this today, and shoot this link to someone you like who might enjoy what we have to say and some of our stories today. Well, we're jumping into our business segment now, a business meta mindset. And followed by that, we always have our lifestyle segment, which is also really fun. But we're getting back into a topic that I think is overlooked a lot, Lyman. And while the topic title we picked may seem a little petty, permission to party, I think it actually opens up a great conversation.
It really does. I see too often working with clients, speaking across different platforms all over the world, where you will sit down, let's say in a cluster meeting, and you will ask someone, when did you celebrate your first win? And they kind of look at you like the deer in the head, like, well, what do you mean my first win? When I got the first contract? No. If you wait till you get the contract to celebrate the win, you've probably had 6 or 7 opportunities to celebrate, to re-energize the momentum. But we're waiting for this great big victory. It's almost like saying, I'm not going to celebrate until we win the war. But wars are won by battles being won. That's how you win the war. It's not this great big Armageddon, the war of all wars. Sometimes it's, okay, Did I get the appointment? Let's celebrate that. Wow. Well, how many appointments did you get? Did they show up? Let's celebrate that your marketing is working. Your advertising is working to get the appointment. Your marketing is working, that they filled out, let's say it's an online form or whatever you have to sort of get that contact information, and they showed up. Those are all wins. If we want to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, oof, I guess I have a really serious confession to make, Lyman, right now, actually. which
Drum roll.
which is that for most of my life, I was well, I'm going to preface this by saying I didn't grow up in a family of celebrating the wins. So that we'll come back to that later when we get to lifestyle. But for most of my life and well into adulthood, I would not celebrate wins, small wins, because I wasn't sure yet whether I was going to fail.
Gotcha.
Well, what that tells me is, you go where your focus is. And the focus was always, I'm somehow a failure. I screw things up somehow. No matter how hard I work, I never make the win. I never, I never quite get the 4.0. There's always this like one thing ahead. So I always sold myself short. So there's a lot of self-abuse basically that goes on when you deny yourself the small wins and to celebrate them.
And it deflates you. It takes the steam out of your sails. It allows you to get into this mode of ideation where you're just thinking about not winning. But when you break, what is truly a win? In the last episode, we talked about a win-win solution. But let's apply that win-win, what I call a win-win-win, with yourself. Listen, I won logically. I won, that conversation. Have you ever had a conversation with someone that maybe you thought would go left and it actually stayed right in center and it was a great conversation? That's a win. Maybe you had a situation where the person was saying, I don't think I can afford your coaching program. You had a conversation and said, you know what? You're right. I really do need this. I was thinking small. That is a win.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it depends on the person and the subculture you might be in if you're watching this in a Western, from a Western culture point of view. I think as a Western culture, in many ways, we've really forgotten the art of individual celebration to a certain extent. It's not like we don't have birthday parties, but a lot of adults don't even care. Some really do, some really don't. But if you look at it, for example, for an average wedding in the US, I'm not making one right or one wrong, but I'm just saying the amount of celebrating that goes on as compared to the average wedding in India is a very different kind of thing.
Yes.
Very, very different. I think somehow in our workaholic, bottom line driven culture, we've really lost part of this belief that we ever actually win, that we ever have a small win. It's like, did I become the multi-millionaire that I set out to be? Did I become the president? Did I become the richest man to graduate from my university? We have these astronomical goals, and anything short of that, we just seem to consider failure.
What about the win? And this is something that I learned from my parents. You know what their greatest joy is when you talk to them? They never had to visit their children in jail. There's a lot of parents that cannot say that, especially growing up in the inner cities, that they did everything and instilled in us a compass that kept us from going left of center, or going too far, I should say left of center, that we ended up in somebody's prison or somebody's jail. And so for them, that is a win. That's a major win for them, that, we put something in our children that none of them ever ended up in any type of legal or financial trouble that they couldn't get themselves out of. Celebrate being a parent. That's a major win. If you're in a healthy, stable relationship, that is a win. If you've started a business, even though we say, well, I'm not making the money that so-and-so, it doesn't matter. You're in business. All right. That is a win. And so again, that's going meta, going beyond what everybody else is doing and looking at it. Okay, I started out not knowing anything about business. Now I am a business owner, and that's a win. Celebrate it. Because the more you celebrate, you know what happens? Getting some neuroscience. It releases endorphins, adrenaline into the bloodstream. So now you start feeling good. If you're in a partnership, a little dose of oxytocin, that bonding hormone that you feel closer. Okay. There is a lot of neuroscience. And what do? We avoid that dopamine drip because we don't celebrate the win. You want to get high? Celebrate the wins, the small win. And that's the neuroscience piece behind why you want to celebrate the win. Dopamine, adrenaline, as well as a little dose of adrenaline.
So those are the incentives, of course. What is the downside if we don't take time to celebrate these small wins?
Depression, anxiety, hypertension, a sense of usefulness, a lack of usefulness, what I meant to say, where you don't feel like my effort are working. You can end up entering into a state of complaining. Nothing I do is working. I don't understand. Jealousy, envy, where you start looking across the street at what someone else is doing. What they celebrating for? Seems like John always winning. He won in high school. I never win. So now we begin self-sabotage. I never win. I will never win. Well, if you believe that, you will never win. You're probably right. You will never win. So the negative, and just look at your own life. What happens when we don't get what we thought we should have? We tend to be highly critical of ourselves, and we come up with, in one episode, we talk about the fist, where we look at the facts, we interpret those facts, we build a story around those facts, and now that becomes truth to us. Oh, so-and-so just doesn't like me. And we've all done that. Here's the simple one, and I'm gonna ask you this question. Did you grow up, did you ever hear this? Let's say it's raining. You better get an umbrella, because if you don't get an umbrella, you're gonna go outside and catch a what? Finish the statement.
A cold.
So we think that wet is synonymous with cold, even though we know cold is caused by a virus, not rain. But we've been conditioned. I've said this in India, Turkey, Bahamas, they all come with the same answer. Some will say rain, some will say pneumonia. It's the same, that we internalize this, Ann.
I think that's such a good point, and so worth remembering. And one of these things that it really comes down to, and I'm going to speak for everyone, but especially on behalf of many women in particular, which is a real lack of our belief in deservingness, for lack of a better word. I don't deserve to be awarded as the best mother because one of my children has a huge emotional problem at school. I don't deserve to be considered that I'm a good enough wife because we argue all the time. I don't deserve to be considered, that even though I closed this one contract, it wasn't nearly as big as the one I was hoping for. So it's really more of a punishment as opposed to a win. And there's a kind of mentality among many women, especially women that have come from a conservative social or religious culture, that they don't deserve the wins. And they might create celebrations for their family members, for their coworkers, for their boss, for their kids, for their husband, but they may not ever celebrate their own. So I think that a lot of this comes down to deservingness, and it can be worth some exploration as part of a meta mindset and becoming able to work organically and even celebrate organically from that intuitive level. Sometimes we have to kind of dig through some of these issues and reverse engineer. Why do I feel undeserving? And is it true? Is it real? Because in most cases, it's not real. It's something we have labeled ourselves with, or people we don't respect have labeled us with. And breaking free from that really will help give us permission to party.
And that's why we create the company, because a lot of you keep trying to do this on your own. It's not working. It's almost like trying to drive forward, but in reverse. The gear is stuck in reverse, but you keep looking forward, and you're wondering, no matter how you try to push yourself forward, you're still going in reverse. And you need someone to be a mechanic and say, listen, the problem is the transmission is broke. We need to fix the transmission, get you out of stuck in reverse, and make sure that you're able to go forward in life. Because too many people say, well, I'm trying to go forward, but I keep going back. Check your transmission.
Wow, that is so good. And I'm going to say, if anyone listening out there, if you know that one of your issues is deservingness, the whether or not you deserve win or celebration, then, or something very similar, then please feel free to reach out and let us know. We would love to respond to that. And I know between Lyman and myself, we've read countless personal development books, both in university and beyond. If you want some title suggestions to help you break through an area like that, then let us know. We'll pass that on to you one-on-one. So shoot us an email. That'll be streaming periodically throughout the show and also be in the notes. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, our second commercial break and last one. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about this. I love digging into this today, Lyman, permission to party and celebrating the small things. And we're going to talk about some practical steps of how do we actually get to that point. So it's just right when we come back. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a minute.
Unleash the power of strategic neuroscience with Focused MetaMindset Inc. Boost your decision-making, sales, sustainable growth, and customer engagement. Scan the QR code now for an exclusive consultation. Elevate your profitability with Focused MetaMindset Inc.
All right, welcome back to our last segment of the day here on MetaMindSream. Dr. Lyman Montgomery and myself, we've been talking about Permission to Party is our fun little title for today. And it's really about taking time to celebrate the small wins. And we've already talked about that quite a bit. What do we celebrate the small wins? I think one of the things that I run up against throughout my life, again, coming from a family that didn't celebrate much, was what do I even do? And is it required that I drink? Maybe you could answer that one, Lyman, because you don't drink. So give us some suggestions of what you do to celebrate.
Take notice, number one, of the win. Just take notice. Sometimes it's a matter of, and this is what I will do, and this is what I encourage clients to do, or individuals that I meet, and they really struggle with motivation. And I say, encourage yourself. Notice, what is it about you that gets you excited? For some, it's like, you know what? Believe it or not, having a cup of coffee on the patio overlooking the pond. Take note of that. How do you celebrate your win individually when there's not a big crowd around? Another suggestion for me is I will celebrate a small win or a small victory by simply picking up the phone and calling a couple of my friends that I'm in relationship with and say, hey, man, I just want to tell you, I got it, man. And we celebrate each other. And it's a small thing. My wife and I, today I closed on a deal. And I was sharing with my wife, like, honey, so-and-so said they're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And we celebrate each other. And then, oh, great. And she might, make me a little, pancakes or something that I like, beans and rice, which I love, or beans and cabbage, We tend to celebrate each other around food. That's my language, you know. So it's these small things, Ann, that you can do. But first is take notice.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's excellent. Of course, take notice. And if you're having a really hard time noticing, then well, it depends on, noticing the wins. So that might be something you could ask people in your immediate sphere to help you with, people who care about you, friends, family members, even coworkers. Like, I never remember to notice my wins. Even your boss, can you remind me? A good boss will want to remind you of your wins. Like, help point them out for me, because I just get focused and I'm like, the win doesn't really matter. It's just on to the next project, on to the next project, on. But we're not robots. And if we don't take time to refresh ourselves and get, as you said, the dopamine dump or whatever else we can get from that.
You have to get that. Right. The other thing is acknowledgement. You know, it's one thing, yes, I noticed this, and you set that sort of trigger. Okay, if I get the appointment, make a mental note, or better yet, write it down. It's better than a mental note. To say, every time I meet an objective, I'm going to celebrate and acknowledge that. Now, how do you acknowledge that? There's several ways. You know, an easy way to acknowledge that is to do something physical. I have a good friend named Al Phillips, Dayton, Ohio. Shout out to Al Phillips and A3 Technologies. Al Phillips, every time he wins something, he claps and does this. Yes, that's celebrating, acknowledging a win. He will literally get physical. He will stand up, do like a little dance or something. And it's crazy, but for him, he has to do something physical to exert that energy. And it might be something as small as, hey, man, they responded to my email. And I really learned this from Al, because Al and I used to work together many years ago. And he would be sitting there. He used to do this little thing at the table where we hit on the table. I said, Al, you can't hit the table. People's coffee and tea is going everywhere. But he would get physical. So that was his way of acknowledging the win, is that he would do something physical. And I like that. I would do that. I get up and do like a little dance. Yay! You know,
I love that.
Vibes. Yay! Something physical is a good way to acknowledge those short, small wins.
I love that. I know when my husband was in sales in Silicon Valley early in the first decade of this century, in the 2000s, right? And they would have, and I know sometimes they do this on Wall Street too, where whenever there's a big win, someone rings a bell right there in the office, right? In the group office, so all the sales, all the sales desks, and they ring a bell on big sales or sales of a certain level. So again, it's an acknowledgement, and that's from a very neuroscientific perspective, which is to acknowledge as a form of motivation. Now, I think that is often the most important part for us when we're just looking at our own individual small wins, is to remind ourselves that acknowledging them is a huge part of our motivation. If you feel like I never did anything well, or I never did anything right, you're going to have a sort of downhill attitude. But if you're like, I really did that, I rocked that, whatever, you kind of have this idea. And I know for some people, again, as you mentioned already, noticing and then acknowledging. One way to do that, one tool I sometimes use with my clients is a really simple graph or spreadsheet, really, or just, even if it's handwritten with a bunch of, lines and squares, right? So having a column for what it is you have discovered today or this week that is something worth celebrating.
That's a great one.
Every time I have a great phone call with a potential client, you need to articulate that, like write that down, or so that you remember every time I have a great call with a client. These are the things that I consider small wins. And over here is a list of ways I celebrate small wins. So now you get a win, you record it, and you pick something. I'm going to go to lunch to my favorite restaurant, something that's simple, right? I'm going to call up my best friend and chat for an hour over lunch because we never get to talk, and talking to her makes me so happy every time. Finding those little things, like an excuse to really enjoy your life. Isn't that sad? But a small win, a celebration, is kind of an excuse to really enjoy your life.
Here's another one. And this goes into number 3, share. Share with yourself. Share with others. For example, let's say you've gone 5 days making your bed. Just something simple. You got out of bed, you made your bed. Celebrate. Take a picture and say, hey, y'all, you know what? I've never been consistent in making my bed. I've gone a whole week making my bed. Let's celebrate. And then you ask a question. Hey, anyone else out there, is want to get on this like journey with me of, let's go, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So you break it down. Before you know it, Ann, you look back, you've gone a whole month making your bed. My wife is learning Spanish, and she was celebrating the other day. She's gone, I think, 50, almost 60 days, not missing a lesson. And we celebrate that. So it's not always, like you said, a party, a wedding, some big, huge get together. Sometimes it's those little small, intimate of sharing that with someone and then asking them, hey, how can I celebrate you? So now we go back to that mutual respect. It shouldn't always be celebrate me, but Ann, how can I celebrate you? What does that look like for you?
Oh, I love that. And I love that. I think I'm going to do that this afternoon. When I get home, I'm going to talk to my husband and then say, exchange lists for celebrating. And this is one of those opportunities for you. If you have a friend or a significant other or a family member who likes to spend time with you, you like to celebrate a little bit, giving them some suggestions too, right? So one of my love languages has always been giving and receiving gifts. And honestly, it's bigger to give the gift. Like that's what I absolutely love to do. I love to surprise people with something magnificent or beautiful or just something that's taken a lot of thought and care and it's very personalized. But because of that, and what I often forget is that I really like getting gifts too. They could be almost no value. It doesn't matter. It's just the idea that someone thought of me and took some time. So that's something I can put on my list. It's a great opportunity to remind people around me of my love languages. Is if I'm celebrating something or you want to help me celebrate something, here's some ideas. And maybe next time I buy the gift for myself as well. If maybe I have them wrap it at the store and everything. I love opening presents.
That is so powerful. And let's take a little step further in that list. My wife loves roses. However, white roses. Now, if I just heard she loved roses, I would keep showing up with red roses and she would be appreciative. She would, love me for doing that, thinking about her. But what she really, really wants are white roses. Now, in some cultures, white roses or yellow roses is not a sign of love, but it could be a sign of commemorating someone's life. Like in Asian cultures, white is a sign of death. Giving someone in America a black rose could be like, uh-oh. But again, it's what the other person wants. And that's breaking out of tradition.
Really want, right?
Yeah. Not what you think. So sometimes it's best just like you talk about the list. I love that of exchange. How can I celebrate you? What does that look like for you? That when you meet a challenge or hit a marker, how do you want to be celebrated?
And if we are at a stage in our life where we're not so fortunate to have people around us who want to get on the wagon and have an excuse to celebrate with us, excuse to party with us, then we can create this list even just for ourselves. So one of the ways I even like to celebrate sometimes is being generous. And this is not a story of a large, generous gift or anything. Just that one day last week, I'd had a really good outcome for a family member, actually. Just something that for my parents that went really well and that they needed. And I was so grateful. And I just felt grateful and like I should celebrate, but I didn't know what, how do you do, what am I going to do? But I went to the grocery store and there was this lovely older Italian man standing in the parking lot playing a violin so beautifully, beautiful classical music, and just kind of washed over me. And I always feel like there's a bit of a hole in society and everyday life for us to experience the exquisite arts if you will. I think music's in all genres has its place, but sort of the exquisite arts, at least for me, it was really spoke to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to put something in his case, and I'm going to give him the
Yes.
largest bill in my wallet, because today I'm celebrating this outcome by being generous. And it's almost that philosophy of sort of the what goes around comes around, the pay it forward. Is like, wow, some people did some good things. My parents had a great outcome, and I'm paying that forward for this guy. Like, let's keep this good vibe going.
You know, you just shared something. The best way to celebrate a small win is to pay it forward for someone who cannot pay it forward for themselves. And one of the greatest joys that I've ever had in my life has been able to, and I do this periodically, go to the grocery store, and I always look for, it appears to be a single mom with 3 kids. They always got the kid that wants to get a candy bar, and the mom said, no, I can't afford it. What I would do is, I don't make a big deal of it. I would tell the cashier, hey, whatever that bill is, I got. And they look at me like, what? And she'd go up there, and I kind of stand off to the side somewhere. And she will say, the total, let's say, is $100. And she's looking through coupon, and she'll say, ma'am, someone already paid for it. Who? I don't know. And sometimes I just walk away, you know. There's been other times where I've gone to the gas station and I just feel led. You know what? I'm just going to fill up 2 cars today. That is how I celebrate that generosity. Thank you for mentioning that, Ann. For a lot of you that are watching or listening, the best way you can celebrate is through generosity. Thank you for sharing that, Ann. Very powerful.
No, thank you. And thank you for sharing that story that fits so well. And so for all of you today, what a great episode. I took so much away from it. I hope you did as well. Drop us an email. Let us know your thoughts, any requests for topics you have, any questions at all. That email will be streaming in the footer. It'll also be in the notes. So shoot us an email and send this link to someone you like, someone you love, someone who would enjoy and find motivation from our topic today. Permission to party, which is our topic. We're happy you've all been with us here, and just so grateful to each and every one of you as well for being our viewers, our listeners, participating in this incredible meta mindset opportunity that we all share on this journey we call life. Have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Lyman. Bye.
Thank you. Go Meta.